Today's episode is brought to you by Slater's 50/50 and the Brew Bar.
Everything sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is the Another edition. We have a couple of special movies for you today. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. With me is my fabulous co-host, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Tom, say hello to the good people.
It's a damn cliche!
So, we decided to... Obviously, there are going to be plenty of sequels or movies that have just a single sequel to them. But in the early 90s, we had some... just a double dip is really the only way to describe it, isn't it? We had a double dip of another sequels. We had another 48 Hours and another Stakeout. So we're going to link them together by title, and we're going to talk about these two movies. And at the end, we will most likely be picking the series we think deserves to have another sequel pitched for it. Does that sound about right, Tom?
It does, yeah. When we, I think when we envisioned this, we thought, oh, they were just superficially similar. But,
right.
These movies are identical in virtually every way. They're both buddy cop movies that are equal parts comedy and drama. Their storylines completely dovetail.
Right.
They both start with an explosion, which I don't know if that was an early 90s thing. But so I think it's worth talking about these movies together.
I agree. The similarities between them and even in the ways in which they try to mirror their predecessors is kind of astonishing, isn't it?
Absolutely. They both
feel like shot-for-shot remakes of the original movies.
They both come up with a lot of the same strategies for coping with the fact that they're a sequel.
Right.
Which is hilarious to me. It's like it feels like there's this real insecurity about it that we have to get out there.
Right, and the most fascinating thing to me is, we've talked before about, bringing the cast back, that kind of thing. Everybody's back. In these two movies, everybody's back. We're talking about same writers, same directors. All the actors are back. Maybe you add an actor here or there, but for the most part, everybody's back, creatively and in front of the camera.
Yeah, and it's top of the line in terms of the people involved in these movies.
Right.
So you get a sense that they're all feeling slightly uncomfortable about the idea of making these movies.
Well, I am fascinated to see.
And we have to find some way to deal with that on screen.
Correct. All right. Well, for today's episode, we are going to first talk about the 1990 sequel, Another 48 Hours, directed by Walter Hill, and a sequel to his 1982 film, 48 Hours. This movie had a budget, the sequel rather, Another 48 Hours, had a budget of $38 million. It grossed $80 million in the U.S. and $153 million worldwide, so it was a success.
Yeah, 8 years. That's a long time to wait.
It is a long time for a sequel, and obviously, we normally start every series sequel or a series of sequels, ranking them and declaring them good or bad. So let's go ahead and do that, right? Let's do it between the two movies, between Another 48 Hours and Another Stakeout. What say you? How do you rank them? Which one's the better sequel?
Are we doing rankings first? Okay. It's... There's not much in it, but because they are the same movie. But I'm gonna go Another 48 Hours, Another Stakeout.
Oh, I'm relieved that for once we finally fucking agree. If you had said Another Stakeout, I was gonna leave the closet here that I am ensconced in
Now that you're
and
proud of
travel
me,
to your
Michael,
home and murder you.
Can I drop a bombshell that you won't be proud of?
Oh God.
I want to. And now that you're at this moment where you're finally proud of something I've said, I want to use this goodwill to my advantage. I have seen neither the original movies for these two movies. These two sequels.
Oh my God.
I have
Tom.
neither seen of 48 Hours or Stakeout.
Oh,
There was never
Listen
going
to
to be
me.
a good time to tell you, but this seemed like the best one.
that's, I mean, it's upsetting. If for no other reason than both of those movies are sort of seminal for me. Like, I mean, they were movies that I loved so much upon the first viewing. I saw the original Stakeout at least 6 times in the
Interesting.
theater. Like, it's a top 10 movie for me.
Huh.
And 48 Hours, I felt the same way for a long time. The first 48 Hours is a little bit more problematic. There's just so much racism in it, and that's kind of alarming.
Yes. Well, I got that much from the sequel.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Yes. Okay. So, all right, we're gonna put aside this terrible crime.
And I saw another Stakeout in the movie theater,
Jesus
which
criminy.
I don't think is physically possible, is it?
Oh.
Anyway,
I feel we're delving deeper into the psychosis with each episode. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to have to put that aside for now. For each movie, is it a good movie or a bad movie? Another 48 Hours, is it good?
I know dead air is not great for a podcast, but I'm really struggling.
I was
with
willing
this.
to let it
I
go
feel-
as long as it needed to.
Huh?
I was willing to
don't
let
need-
the dead
I
air
don't
go
need
as
to
long
struggle
as it
with
needed to, my friend.
It's a bad movie. But can we do like a parenthesis bad trash bad, as in that
Like
can
so
be
bad
good?
it becomes good?
Okay, I'm gonna go good.
All right. I'm pleased by that because I think it's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a great movie.
I'm totally on the fence. There are a
Yeah.
couple of scenes, we'll get there, but there's a couple of scenes in this movie that I enjoy in such a dirty way it kind of tips it into good.
Yeah, I think there's enough that works in another 48 hours to say, okay, I'm not pissed at the end of watching it. Another Stakeout, that's a bad movie for me. At the end of it, I'm just so tired and annoyed. Everything about it bothers me.
Yeah, no spoilers in saying I think another Stakeout is a bad movie.
All
With a
right.
couple of good scenes.
You're going to have to tell me about them because I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that.
I'm not sure those scenes are actually from that movie.
Oh, there you go.
But I genuinely forgot I was watching the movie Another Stakeout at one point.
All right. I can imagine that because they made a completely different movie, which you would know if you'd seen the original, but you don't know because
But
you
I
haven't.
don't know. Yeah.
All right. So we've got the Another sequels. Today we're going to be talking about Another 48 Hours. You know, if you'd seen the original, you know that this movie starts almost exactly in the same manner as the first movie. The first thing
I intimated that.
yeah, the first thing you're going to see are the bad guys. You know, some heavy violence. What struck you about the start of this movie?
That it was a Western.
Okay, yeah. Same thing
we
for the
just
first
finished
movie.
with Back to the Future 3.
Right.
And I was like, is it just that all movies in the early 90s have to have some kind of Western pastiche in them? But yeah, that's pretty much what there was so much Western imagery in that opening So that threw me a little bit. I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe it's 48 Hours Goes West in the sort of American Tale tradition.
Uh-huh.
But obviously it's not. And I think, again, we talked about this with Superman 2. We get a couple of different cold open-y type sequences in
Yeah.
succession.
There's definitely two cold opens.
Yeah, so and when we get to the racetrack with Nick Nolte, which kind of as Jack in like reintroducing, well, you tell me, are one of those bikers in the original movie?
Oh no.
No, none of them.
No. Oh,
They really make it out like these are characters that we've seen before.
no. You got Cherry Gans, who's the brother of Albert Gans, and Albert Gans is the antagonist in the first 48 Hours movie.
But he wasn't a character or even mentioned in the first movie.
No, the brother? No, not at all.
That's ludicrous. I would never have.
But that's
thought
one of
that.
those tropes, you know? I mean, that's a real solid movie trope of like you have a great bad guy in a movie, and at a certain point as the sequels go along, there's going to be a revenge aspect for a family member, a brother, whatever.
So there's a lot. Am I safe in assuming that there's a lot of retconning here? Like if I from not having seen the original, it seemed to me that this one, at least one of these bikers, was a character in the original movie, and that we'd heard of the Iceman before.
Nope, had never heard of the Iceman.
So none of those things are true.
Correct. They're,
Right. Okay.
none-
Well, this
Yeah.
is why it's interesting to not have seen the original movie, because I totally bought that Nick Nolte spent the first movie going, damn Iceman, I gotta get that damn Iceman, like just to himself while the movie was going on.
That's
There's a pretty
that's the
spectacular
difference between the
explosion
two
very early
movies
on.
to me, though. You know, it's this idea. It feels I don't know. There's just something different in the '90s. You know, where you have to have the criminal mastermind element, as opposed to the first movie. Just feels like cops doing their job
Yeah.
and come across a particularly villainous person, but it feels more procedural. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, not to jump too far ahead, but we have a triple bluff
Yeah.
about the identity of the villain later on in the movie.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if I've ever seen a triple bluff outside of the movie Clue.
That's bold. Yeah.
I mean, it really is. They do the switcheroo quite a lot, and I think, and we'll talk about this with another stakeout as well. But obviously, this opening, the two cold open sequence, one at a racetrack, one at a saloon in the Old West. It seems.
Well, the funny part too is like, I mean, there's nothing around that saloon.
Right.
It's like complete and total desert, and then there's a building that's just a bar diner kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And you think, who made this business plan?
And I guess my other preconception was that even though I knew the opposite was true, that Eddie Murphy's not going to be in this movie except as a photograph. For a little while, he's just a photograph.
He would get top billing for the photograph.
Yeah, I mean, I was tipped off by the fact that the co-producer of this movie is Eddie Murphy Productions.
Right.
But apart from that,
Well, a lot had flipped because 48 Hours, the original, was literally his first film role.
right?
And so Nick Nolte had top billing and he had second billing. And then, of course, everything flips by 1990 because he's one of the biggest box office stars and he's top billed and Nick Nolte's
And
second and he's
everything
producing
flips
it. And,
conceptually, right? That's the big selling point of this movie. It's like now the cop is in trouble with the law and the convict is a free man, right? That's the idea.
yeah, but it doesn't feel that purposeful, does it?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what else doesn't feel purposeful: the 48-hour time period.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so here's an interesting fact about this movie. This movie originally it's like a 90-minute movie, and
Yeah.
there was originally an hour's worth more of film including a whole lot of backstory for Brian James, who plays Detective Kehoe.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if we want to give that up in the triple ending thing, but he said it was one of the biggest, not problems, but one of the biggest disappointments of his career, how much they took out of this particular movie to try and make it, as we've discussed before, lean and mean.
Yeah, and it doesn't outstay its welcome too much.
It better not at 90 minutes.
And that's it was a big mistake with Superman 4. It was a big mistake taking that hour off. Here, I feel like that was the right move.
Well, and that's the thing, is that this movie, it feels very different than the original. And I can say this about both the Another sequels. Both original movies have a quality to them where the comedy and the action blends better. The movies look different. They have sort of a muted color tone, whereas these sequels both have that sort of oversaturated, almost looks like a cartoon coloring to them.
Oh yeah, downright blurry.
Yeah, that just makes makes everything look less believable. They walk into police stations and it looks like a set as opposed to a police station, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think one of the reasons why this is the better another early 90s another sequel is that I think the comedy and the comedy and the drama blends pretty well, or at least
much better in Another 48 Hours than Another Stakeout for me.
At least if it doesn't blend necessarily, like the comedy is well judged.
Yeah.
I like the gags. I like the Eddie Murphy singing along to a Walkman that we can't hear. Must have helped with the rights issues too. That's a nice gag. Nolte has some wonderful stuff comically. And I mean, was it the case in the first movie?
And they're good together.
Say again.
They're good together. They have an excellent rapport.
And the Nolte cigarette thing, is that hammed up from the original, or does he literally have a cigarette in every second of the movie in his mouth?
Yeah, he smokes an awful lot in the first one.
Because I was in complete admiration at his ability to keep a cigarette in his mouth while he's doing everything.
Right.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful work.
Well, we're talking here about Another 48 Hours. We're getting into the cigarette play of Nick Nolte. We're just getting started here. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back, everybody, to finish out Another 48 Hours. Look, people, we're living in strange times. We know that, don't we? Of course we do. People don't even know what to do with themselves. We're getting stir crazy. Well, get outside and get yourself some great food, I say. You need to go to Slater's 50/50 in Point Loma's Liberty Station. It's time to treat yourself to booze, to beer, to burgers, and more. They have their full menu, people. Their full menu, I say. How many restaurants do you know that are doing that? Most places are doing a quarter of their menu, probably. Some might be doing a half. Maybe a few have got 3/4 of a menu. But Slater's 50/50 has their full menu, including their signature 50/50 patty. It's half ground beef. It's half ground bacon. It's 100% delicious. What more could you possibly ask? Worried about social distancing? Well, it is in place, people. Tables are separated, and the staff will always be seen wearing masks. You're out of excuses. Get off your keister and come on down to Liberty Station's own Slater's 50/50. Outdoor dining available. Bring the family. Bring your dog. Come enjoy the normal again. Good day to you. I said good day. And we're back. We're here talking about Another 48 Hours. We were just discussing sort of the beginning of this movie. Let me ask you this, Tom.
Yes.
One of the things that I think makes this the better sequel of the Another sequels, you have two talented directors. Walter Hill is the director of both 48-hour movies.
Yeah.
And John Badham, or Badham, is director of both Stakeouts. And these are two quality directors. I mean, John Badham is, War Games, and, we've got Blue Thunder, which I think is just a fine movie.
Agreed.
And Walter Hill, I mean, just been around forever. You know, you see his name on everything.
And a great writer too, great screenwriter.
Yeah, and a really great writer.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing to me is when I watch Another 48 Hours, I feel like it's Walter Hill that is keeping this movie together. Did you have that sense, or?
Um,
I felt like he made it better than it should have been.
I mean, I think this, it's, I don't know. I think one of the best choices in the movie, and I think it's a directorial choice, is to kind of like double down on the trashy exploitation side of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of my favorite scenes in the movie, well, there's two. One's a moment, one's a scene. Is firstly the Cage Club.
Yeah.
I was sort of drifting by this point in the movie, and I was like, did I switch over to From Dusk Till Dawn?
Right.
It's suddenly we're in a like a biker club with cage dancers and this kind of
Tons of glass and mirrors.
psychobilly music. I'm like, what's going
Yeah.
on? And then there's this pink smoke coming out of the floor, and it looks like we're in a Hammer horror movie. And then, you know, this moment, which I assume is a famous moment, if it shouldn't be, I'm happy to popularize it, where a bike flies out of a pair of boobs on a movie screen.
Yeah, and a porno movie screen.
Yeah. And while these are things that, you know, would, for a lot of movies, degrade them, I feel this elevates the movie enormously, because, you know, you're always going to have those ultimate trash moments, even if the rest of the movie is not particularly remarkable, or it just takes so long to establish that things are different now, and then just resets to the beginning of how things always were, as I understand it. I might be getting wrong here.
Because you have no idea.
We spent so long trying to keep Jack and Reggie apart, only to bring them back together again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think there's a couple of things where I really kind of you can see Walter Hill as director and screenwriter kind of working together. They have like an exposition scene where Nick Nolte's reading police files, but they're doing it while the car is speeding, like as a mobile shot of the car speeding across San Francisco.
Right, and then he throws it in reverse. Just to drive.
Effectively in the middle of a car chase.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's great directing, and that's great screenwriting, because, you know, you're not weighed down by exposition, and you keep it moving.
Right.
And you keep the pace of the movie up for this, like, deadweight scene.
Well,
So, yeah, there were a couple of moves I really admired from Walter Hill here.
Yeah, I felt like he was trying to give the most to a lesser script. The script, like I think you've mentioned, kind of wanders a bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's plotting about. There are lots of sort of uncomfortable exposition moments. The idea, going back to the racetrack, you know, where the internal affairs officer is saying, "Oh, the Iceman, eh, Jack? Been chasing him for years. Is that right?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's right. Goddammit, I'm getting close to these guys." You know,
I've been chasing him for exactly the amount of time that this has not been on screen.
On screen, exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that sense, and I think one of the big problems is that they seem to have a bigger problem with letting the audience know that this is a sequel than we do.
Yeah, right.
As soon as you get on screen, they're like, "Oh, times change. You got a new haircut. Things are as that
you've lost a little weight.
These lines, of
but you've got the
dialogue
same
referring to the
car.
fact that we're in a sequel. It's like, you're in trouble with the law this time. There's numerous lines like this, and that's like, I'm like, guys, you're wasting time.
Yeah, right.
We get it.
Yeah.
I ain't a
we
convict
know all
no
of
more,
this.
I'm a free man. You know, it's like, yeah, this is basically like they're pitching the movie to us.
Right.
It's like, guys, we're on board. We came. We bought our ticket.
We're in the theater already. We wanted to come.
And there are one or two moments where that's actually done in a delightful way. When Nick Nolte starts a bar fight, having just said, let's not have a bar fight.
Yeah.
It's a damn cliche. And then immediately starts.
And then
a
starts
bar
one.
fight. I'm like, okay, so that's Back to the Future 2 level kind of self-aware commentary on sequels. But the rest of the time, it's just like we're feeling a little uneasy about doing all this again. How do we explain to the audience that it's okay that we are?
Yeah.
Because it feels like this is also, it's trying to repeat something that in the real world would never happen twice.
Right.
Like,
and that's
these two people would never see each other again, work together again, and have similar adventures because of where they are in society. I mean, I guess that was the whole point of the
original movie. Correct. A convict and a cop working together in a buddy cop movie.
Overcompensate, I think.
Yeah, and so it does pale because it does feel like, Reggie Hammond getting out of jail. It does feel like him having to work with Jack Cates again is like a hard wedge. You know what I mean?
Did we meet?
Because if the Iceman,
Smith
if the
before?
Iceman was this paranoid about like the Iceman would just have Reggie Hammond killed in jail. He would have done it many, many years ago.
Or, not spoiler alert, or just like lean over the desk and shoot him. While the other cop who's involved in it.
Well, and that's
looks
the interesting thing about this movie is like, Reggie is in the police station several times, and then the character of the Iceman, let's just go ahead and say it's one of the cops. It's Jack Kehoe, who was in the first movie.
Oh, okay, good. So there is some continuity.
There is that continuity, the idea, but it's also kind of a bummer. He just seems like a hard-working guy. Like in the first movie, he's just trying to help Jack out where he can.
Well, he's so visually and orally like Nolte that I wish they'd have kind of made more of that. It's like there was no sense of like, Jack, this could have been you if you'd taken a wrong turn.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all cast from the same mold, the cops in this movie. What about on the convict side? Is Kirkland Smith in the original movie? Bernie Casey?
He's not. No, he's not. Kirkland Smith is new, and the interesting thing to me about this movie is every time I watch it, I think, shit, man, like Bernie Casey might be the best actor in this movie. Like, this is believable
the first
to me.
Black Felix Leiter. He is
yeah, exactly.
African American acting royalty, and he shows it in this movie. He has some great moments. I think, and that's why he completely sells for me the idea, which I'm now learning is not true. That Kirkland Smith was like a recurring character, and that this idea of him getting his money to his daughter was like a thing that Reggie was involved with in the first movie as well.
Nope. All invented.
But it seems so important to both him and Reggie. But that's just the gravitas of Bernie Casey, I think.
That's exactly right. I mean, he even has that line, "I could get you out there, Reggie." Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could reach out and whatever he says, rip your fucking throat out or something like that.
Yeah.
And he is intimidating. Like, he's so good that if I was Reggie Hammond, I'd make sure to do that before I split town.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there, but I mean, the flip side of that is, when we get to Kirkland Smith's daughter, who it turns out is where the money is going, and it's not like a selfish thing. He's trying to pass it on to his daughter.
Right.
Which is a nice twist, but it happens so late in the movie, we barely see this daughter. And I think I'm going to establish a new rule where we're only going to mention problematic representations of women and people of color if they don't happen. Because I'm tired of making the same exact point every single time we do a movie.
Yeah.
With this movie, it's Asian Americans, particularly.
Yes.
When we get to Chinatown, we have that Asian horn to tell us we're there. That we on the soundtrack, and we have a lot of Asian people shouting, which again feels like a very early '90s thing. The action
Yeah.
sequences where there's an Asian American shouting in someone's face while all the action is happening.
Well, and that's one of the interesting things about the first movie because, Jack Cates, the character is, I mean, he's just filled with racial hate throughout the movie. He is calling Eddie Murphy the N-word.
Yeah.
And taking it further, like the racial epithets that fall out of his mouth throughout that movie are like alarming and hard to watch. But at the same time, at the end of the movie, he has this moment where he says, the N-word, all that stuff I said, I didn't really mean it. I was just doing my job, trying to keep you down. And Eddie Murphy looks at him and says, yeah, but that doesn't explain everything, does it? And he goes, nope. And so you have this unusual. I would be curious to know what the actors think about that today.
Right.
Because it seemed to be the moment that brought them together in that first movie. And that's the interesting thing about this movie. By the end of the movie, Nick Nolte is, Eddie Murphy is saying, man, I'm sorry about your friend. He goes, he wasn't my friend. You're my friend.
I didn't get a sense of any racial tension between them. Maybe like in the frame of this movie.
No, it's not. It's not really present in this movie
at all, right?
Yeah, no.
So that seems a weird thing that would just go away after 8 years, right?
Yeah, but it's because we're having these conversations now. It's just interesting to me, this idea of all those things I said I didn't really mean. And yet they're still terrible. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I mean I can see that. But if they're talking about the fact that this is happening and that it's not okay, that's preferable to kind of casual underlying racism, which is what happens in this movie.
True. Yeah. It's interesting too, like there are some social issues brought up in this movie. There are things we're talking about now, the idea about police.
Yeah.
Jack Cates has this moment with the internal affairs officer when he says, I don't think police are above the law. I think we should have people checking up on us, but it should be civilian review. And so the idea of having cops checking up on cops.
Yeah.
And we're talking about that right now. And Eddie Murphy has this hilarious line where he says, if shit was worth something, poor people would be born without assholes.
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing as well when the bikers there's a scene where the biker gang are talking about how white people are slaves in this country. Poor white people are slaves in this country,
right.
in front of a black guy,
in front of a black
middle
man,
management black guy, and the look on that guy's face is just priceless.
It's fantastic. I mean, it just marks the moment perfectly. If you want to be an outlaw, but you want to play by rules.
Yeah. He's just like, yeah.
Whatever.
So there is a sense of like white entitlement.
And he keeps calling them hillbillies throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
The middle management man.
So yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of that, but obviously not as much as the original, and I think perhaps not. I mean, and it is it's a sequel trope, I think, to just like not be as edgy as your original for the sake of like people when you
be
when you
pleasing to more people
with the characters.
Yeah,
you can just resolve some of the difficult stuff.
Right.
So that this is Ghostbusters 2 in for grown-ups.
There you go. All right, well, we're talking about another 48 hours. We're going to take one more quick break, and then we'll be back to wrap it up right after this.
If you're anything like me, you spend the majority of the day wondering whether you want coffee, beer, or wine. Whichever way you fall, Brew Bar has you covered. Located in the heart of 3rd Avenue Village in glorious downtown Chula Vista, California, which is also my neck of the woods, Brew Bar is a coffee shop, bar, and eatery rolled into one delightful package. Tim and Alex run the place, and let me tell you, listeners, these guys know their coffee. And after you've been in their company, so will you. They turned me on to pour over, and it's literally all I drink now. If for some crazy reason you don't want to try the best coffee in the world, they've got espresso drinks, all kinds of teas, and even coffee cocktails. You heard me? Coffee tails. And we're just getting started. Bottle service on craft beer and wine, alcoholic and caffeinated potions, an all-day food menu with plenty of vegan options. All served up in an atmosphere hip enough to know you're getting the best quality, but not too hip that you feel the need to drive to 7-Eleven and get a bucket of brown swill. Brew Bar. It's the best place to be for beer, wine, coffee, and tea. And if you go, you might even see me.
And we're back. We're finishing up talking about Another 48 Hours. We kind of referenced this earlier, Tom. Let's talk about the end of the movie. One of the things I think works really well for this movie, for one, we haven't talked about those two biker villains. The one who plays Albert Gans's brother, Cherry Gans, his name's Andrew Devoff. In particular, I think he's a good villain. He's kind of menacing. I really liked him in this movie. How about you?
Yeah, I think this was another instance where, like Bernie Casey, I thought he was a character from the original movie and that we were kind of following his revenge story, which we are, but no one's ever seen him before. He's the Needles of this particular franchise. It's like, who the fuck is Needles? But yeah, absolutely. I thought he was. There was a kind of like a proto Sons of Anarchy kind of vibe about them all. That is actually really. So the original villains are bikers.
No.
Every guess I've had about this movie has been wrong based on the sequel.
In the original movie, his brother was in a gang with Reggie Hammond. So they were all working together. They robbed apparently, the Iceman. Not that that's ever discussed in the first movie.
It turns out.
But they robbed in the first movie, they say they robbed a dealer.
Okay.
And then you learn that, the sort of trope of, oh, he's got a brother and he wants revenge, and boy, does he. And it all...
Yeah, no, he's while he's attacking them, he's like, "You killed my brother, pig!"
Yeah.
So I was totally sold on that he was like the kind of Hamlet figure of these movies. I'm interested to find out that he only appears in this movie.
That's fantastic. I'm starting to love now that you have not seen the original. That's really funny.
Yeah, it's very and I think we're getting towards the end of the movie now, and I even had in my notes, was this cop in the original movie? And I guess that makes more sense that you kind of subvert your expectations.
Well, which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the Edo Ross character or the Iceman? Okay, yeah.
That's like a...
So yes, Brian James, who plays Ben Kehoe, was in the original. Edo Ross, who plays Frank Cruz, was not in the original, and there wasn't any IA officer either in the original. We were discussing the Triple Cross, so let's go ahead and discuss that now. The audience is made to believe that the IA agent is the Iceman, and that turns out to not be true.
Right.
What's that actor's name? Kevin Teague, I believe.
From Murder
he plays
One.
Blake
He's
Wilson.
Great.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this movie tries to sidestep as many expectations as possible. Earlier on in the movie, they want you to believe that they killed off both Nolte and Murphy in the same scene.
Inside of 3 minutes.
Right, which would have been interesting. I mean, that would have been a way to go. You know, like the two completely different cops start investigating that crime, and that's what the rest of the movie's about. I
Roll
would have loved that.
credits.
I mean,
It's
people would have
funny.
walked out, obviously.
Yeah. But in the Triple Cross, so we're made to believe that the IA cop Kevin Teague is the Iceman.
Yeah.
Then we're kind of just it almost feels like you're flat out told that Edo Ross is
Yeah.
him. And they go to the Cage Club to find out that Brian James as Ben Kehoe, who you know from the original film, is the Iceman, and they have this glorious shootout
Mm-hmm.
that I just think is so much fun and has one of my favorite stunts I've ever seen in a movie. Like I almost would say this is a good movie based solely on that stunt when Cherry Gans goes out the window and hits the water truck.
Why? Yeah. Spectacular.
I think it looks fantastic. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen on film. I just love it.
And they shoot they shoot Reggie in that scene in a way that suggests that he's not going to survive the movie as well for a few seconds. So
Yeah, they're not going to let you hang out on that limb for too long.
no, that's correct.
Yeah.
And I get this, like, it'd be interesting to compare the endings of these two movies, because with this one, I get the sense that after the shootout, they're so pumped for the idea that they're going to make another one of these movies with these two characters.
Yeah. And there were plans, they just kind of fell through.
The boys are back in town.
Right, which was a song created for the original movie.
Ah, okay.
And then they brought back. So it was created originally for the 48 Hours films. That's one thing I really like about this movie. Like the instrumental music is all from the original movie and still works. I think it's really great music and sets a great mood. You know, of course, we have the big shootout at the end, and then Jack Cates, who had just prior to this told Eddie Murphy, like, between you and me, I've always been straight. I'm a good cop. Like, I don't cross the line. And then, of course, at the end, they take the drug money and said, we'll talk about it at the hospital. You know?
Right. There's a sense of an enthusiasm about going forward, which is carried into the end of the movie, which I really don't get from Another Stakeout.
Yeah.
But it's like it's that sort of this. It's misplaced enthusiasm, and I this is something I think we're going to talk about a lot. The sense of like, it's like, okay, we got through the first sequel. You know, it's plain sailing from
We're
here.
going to make
like
a bunch of these. Yeah,
movies,
exactly.
And they're just going to keep getting better and better.
And
that's what I feel from the end of
it's
this
all
movie.
downhill
Like,
from here.
You know, it's like, where could Eddie Murphy's career go from here but up? And it is. I mean, it was a while into the movie before I was like, so this movie, in terms of Eddie Murphy's career, is closer to Boomerang than it is to, like, Trading Places. But that's, I mean, he's good. He's good in this movie, but is it like the beginning of the end for him?
No, because, I mean, he had plenty of hits in the 90s. You know, I don't think it was till the late 90s that things started, because he did the Nutty Professors and Bowfinger. I mean, he did stuff that people went and saw, to say the least. But, there's just something about these 90s movies and these two sequels that, we'll be talking about Another Stakeout. For me, it just falls apart in that movie. That doesn't really happen here. It doesn't fall apart, but, it lacks by comparison. Is there anything else you feel you must add to Another 48 Hours, or have we wrung this towel out as much as we could?
Well, yes, I wanted to remark I think another moment in the movie that both elevates and degrades it simultaneously is when Nick Nolte is packing his desk when he thinks he's going to be awaiting criminal trial, and his two
I know what you're going to say.
The two items that he picks to treasure among all his possessions. One is a policeman's award. Okay. The other is a pen with a naked woman on it that takes her clothes off when the ink drains.
Yeah, when you turn it upside down, her clothes drain.
And I think that's beautiful that like those are the two items he prizes from this 15-20 year career as a police officer. And Nolte is exactly the person to act that scene. I don't think you would have accepted it
Agreed.
from anyone else.
All right, that's it for another 48 hours. I don't think we could say any more.
Literally nothing.
So stay tuned, and our next episode will be another stakeout. Take care, everyone. Be good.